What's up, everybody? First off, there's birds in your background. I'm jealous because it's still like wintertime at any moment here in Utah. I'm jealous. Real fast, guys, welcome to the Coffee Lab episode 5, the selection. Today we have Curtis Zimmerman from Presta Coffee Roasters out in Arizona. Curtis fell in love with coffee as a professional cyclist in Europe. When he came back to the United States, he realized that it was hard to find a good cup of coffee, so he created his own small pop-up, which over the past 8 years has grown into a well-loved local coffee shop with 3 locations all around Tucson. With his business named after a part of a bike. Really? I did not know that. Boom, educated. With his business named after a part of a bike, he is known for being a bike-friendly coffee shop. He's passionate about cultivating relationships with farmers all around the world, creating unique roasts customized to each selection. Curtis is a guy that if you know him, you love him. I already love you, dude. That is so awesome. Thank you so much. How is it going today? Busy schedule, spring, everything's flourishing. How's it going?
Good. Just got a package.
Oh, perfect. Does he want to be on the podcast? Better be coffee or else.
What is? We'll have to look at that later on. I think it's belts for the bag sealer.
Perfect. So, guys, real fast for people that are new to the podcast, the Coffee Lab is designated for one thing, and it is building community, building conversations, whatever that looks like for individuals, people. I have interacted with people. I have talked to them randomly about coffee because all of our friends know that me and my wife love coffee and want to open up a coffee shop and all this stuff. And it's not just normal coffee. It's all about specialty coffee. The average, coffee shop, Starbucks, all that, it's not about that. It's about specialty coffee, roasters, farmers, crops, all that sort of thing is all just tied into this one thing. And so the Coffee Lab is designed to have that discussion and to educate, but also to talk to incredible individuals like Curtis here, who has been in the industry for a long time, who has seen the changes of coffee. And if you're in the Arizona area, go find a shop, Presta. We're going to talk about all the different locations in Arizona as far as specialty coffee, because I know of 2 or 3 that are really outstanding coffee shops, and I want to know more of them. But again, chat is there. If you have questions, ask a question. If you're curious, we'll address it. But today's episode, we're talking about the selection, what it takes to specifically to decide the sort of crop and bean that you're gonna roast, from producing what that looks like. But real fast, what are you brewing today, Curtis? What do you have in your hands? What are you sipping on?
Oh yeah. I'm actually drinking this lovely coffee. You guys might know Rodrigo Sanchez of Monte Blanco.
I have heard the Monte Blanco, yes.
Yeah. He just sent out these samples. The one I'm drinking now is the lemonade coconut. I gotta get the full thing. It's a fermentation process that they do.
Yeah, lemonade coconut. What?
Yeah, it's he's exploring in all his fermentation.
That's insane.
Infusions with fruits and stuff. So this one is the lemonade coconut. I sample roast this yet, and I haven't actually put it on a cupping table yet. I've been brewing it as a cup of coffee.
You're just keeping it to yourself, huh? I see. You're just holding it. You're just withholding.
No, I have more, and we will put it on the table tonight. So, and there's a couple of them he sent over to me, and they were pretty interesting. So
that's awesome. So again, guys, Curtis was kind enough to set out a bunch of coffees. We cupped all these coffees about 2 days ago with me and my wife, and it was really, really fun. I'm going to switch here to this camera here just so you guys can see. So this is what we're going to be brewing today. Don Alley Natural, Costa Rica. Tell us about this coffee, exactly how you found it, maybe the relationship of it, and then we'll just brew a cup of coffee of it just to enjoy, because I have not actually tried this one yet. We tried the Ethiopian that you sent right here on hot,
wow.
As well as the Colombia. We tried that today too, but talk about the Costa Rica, the story behind that, if you have one, or yeah.
The Costa Rica story is kind of really my first farm relationship. It goes all the way down to, oh gosh, it's probably 7 years in the making, maybe even 8. But yeah, I would say I met maybe his daughter, Nella, first. So Carlos Montero is the owner of Don Ely, who is actually his father's name, who just passed away last year. But Carlos Montero runs the farm. Jacob is the son who still has his hand in majority of the processing, and also had his hand in the processing of this natural. But I met them through, I believe it was through Nella, but maybe not, maybe on a sourcing trip a while back. But, I think he has the sense of goofiness that I had, and we hit it off right away. And he was willing to step into new changes with the farms, because he was, he took over from his father, and it was kind of like, it's the traditions have been passed down throughout the years, and all of a sudden there's this new specialty wave coming through, and Carlos was really interested in looking for the new wave coming through, and so he was interested in these new processes and trying to understand how they work. And
right. Do you find that with obviously you built a relationship with that farm, do you feel like you had a better position to offer those changes, or to talk about them, discuss them? Is that common that roasters do, or do they leave it to?
You discuss them in the manner of just trying to educate them on what we're looking for. We don't try to change their ways,
Right.
But if they come to us looking to change, I'm definitely happy to help. And they know a lot more on processing, at least how running the process itself. But
Yeah.
also, what we're looking for as roasters, and what the trend is in the States, and what the trend is.
That's true.
If anyone wants to be on the forefront and they're willing to learn, yeah, I'm going to show them.
Yeah. And just to talk about what we're brewing and how we're brewing it. So this is just a V60 that we got here. We're doing 20 grams of coffee with at a 1:16 ratio. So our total yield will be 320. We're about halfway there. Again, the V60 is just a super simple brew method that you can do. It takes maybe about 2.5-3 minutes, depending on what you're doing. Again, the taste of the coffee, but that's what we're brewing today, just to enjoy this Costa Rica here.
Yeah.
So let's pull back to Presta, the location that you're at, the locations that you have, how long have you been in the area, and then kind of talk again that origin story of where Presta came about. I don't know, and I would love to know.
Well, I mean, the shop came about 10 years ago, but like the idea was always implanted years ago, like 30 years ago. It's part of the whole cycling culture is coffee and cycling, and you see it big now. It's massive now.
Yeah, a lot more now. Yeah, for sure.
I started racing at 14, and by the time I was 19, I was in Europe, and I did see it influenced me a little bit then. And I didn't really do much about it. And I don't think I even drink lots of coffee back then. I think, it was kind of a trend to be in Italy to do that stuff. You start off in the cafe with an espresso, and you ended up in a cafe and espresso. And maybe in between the rides, you ended up having an espresso.
Yeah.
And it was way better than what I remembered it in the States. So it just ended up becoming influential in me and that term right there at that moment. But I came back and then, racing, I carried on my career for a while, and then I ended up dumping that, having a family, having 2 kids. And then we ended up moving over in Italy again for 8 months. And I think that's where it really clicked with me. So, because in that trip, we also traveled within. We went up into Denmark, Amsterdam, Sweden, and I started trying better coffees outside of Italy. And we came back, And at the time, I was running a news publication in the bike world. We were compiling blogs. We were giving professional cyclists blogs and then pulling the RSS feed. But this is before I think Blogger was just starting to come out. Google bought Blogger, and we were running our own code really for actually WordPress might have just been coming out at the time, but we were running.
Because 8 years ago, everything was kind of shifting, even in the coffee. Like a lot of stuff that we have now in the last 3-4 years was just starting, 8 to 10 years ago, which is crazy to think about because it means it's getting crazy. Older, but yeah.
But it seems so long ago, but yet it was such a short window. But we ended up just we did that for 4 or 5 years, and just the life was limited because the mobile platform really crushed us. We were ahead of the times of what we were doing, but when the mobile platform came out, it crushed us. So I moved on, and I was like, I want to do something I love, because I just did something I loved, and it just didn't work out. So my wife at the time, she was telling me the hospital had the cafe was shutting down and we need really good coffee in there. And I was like, I can do this.
Yeah, so, hospital needs coffee.
Right. So it was some way, I almost thought I might be overwhelmed in that situation, but looking at it now, I wasn't. It was very slow. But we built this cart out of my garage, and we overbuilt this thing. It was this massive cart. And actually, the internals came from an RV store. So everything that was inside of an RV was inside these carts, and we had 100.
Why don't you just get an RV?
Yeah, right. I should have
just build out. You should have. I mean, would have been a lot easier than shifting everything over. But no, that's incredible.
$35,000 on this cart. Just like hand built this thing, and it had an 100 amp panel in it, big Mind Blast plug that went into it.
Yeah.
But it worked out. The hospital was not where I wanted to be after I realized.
Of course not.
You're presenting this specialty thing, and no one wants to come into a hospital to have something cool, because there's sick people. Like, they didn't want to get sick coming into a hospital to have a coffee. Yeah. But it also catered to the staff, which was awesome.
Right. Which is a big, not necessarily income, but it is the majority of the hospital. Like, everybody needs coffee at some point, right? They enjoy it. And that's really incredible, because that's something me and my wife are passionate about. We would do like little pop-ups and stuff with our friends of ours, and we'd probably have like 15, 20 people at my work location, and I would take my little apartamento, my rocket machine, and have pour over and have hot and iced and all that. And I've shared, like, forever ago, you had a Kenya, right? I don't love Kenyas, but one of the Kenyas you had like a few years ago, I had a bag of it and I shared it with everybody. So it was we did that just for fun. We didn't do it to make money or to grow in that way, but we were just like, we want to share specialty coffee with people. And that's what this is about too. If you're joining us again, specialty coffee is it's time, quality, and dedication to a craft. It's much more than just black coffee. It's not Folgers. It's not Dunkin' Donuts. It's blood, sweat, and tears from many people to present. It's 8 years of trial and error and succeeding and opening shops to present a cup of coffee that. And the way I view it is it's always sharing a cup of coffee that can change someone's life. I know it's a cup of coffee, but like, it's just one of those things. Like the other day, I pop in and out of streams, and obviously my Twitch handle is Kainos Loves Coffee. So people are either default to, what's your favorite coffee, or what's this? And there's no short answer. It's, I brewed a V60 today of this Costa Rica from Presta Coffee Roasters. This is what it tasted like. And it automatically said, whoa, I have never heard of someone brewing or tasting coffee like that. My coffee tastes bitter and tastes this, right? So fast forward to what our topic is about today is the selection, right? So you've worked with a lot of farmers, you've worked with a lot of producers and different coffees that have come through. Obviously, like you said, times are changing, things like different methods and stuff. Like you had sent me, which one? Like a lactic natural. I'd not had one of those before. Explain to me what that is.
Well, right now everyone's creating their own names.
Exactly.
How the process
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, if you really look at it, it's a lactic process, but like you get all this information from farms from either Colombia, and then the translation is what they want it to be, and I try to respect on how they've done it. Yeah, but a lactic natural it can be multiple things,
right?
But it's a lactic process. But which one was that? Was that
that one was the Colombia,
no label one before
Java,
the label?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's from El Vergel.
And we've talked about anaerobic before on this podcast specifically. How does that differ from that process?
You talked about which anaerobic process? What?
Just in general, the anaerobic process of them removing, like it being in a canister, removing any O2 and all that. How does that differ from a lactic natural?
Well, I mean, it comes down to the realm of like, yeah, the processes are all weird. They can have tanks. They can have blue plastic tanks.
Yeah.
That do, and the lactics are really just with milk, too. I mean, sometimes it was weird. If you go in at 90 plus, it was so weird. I was there about 6 years ago, and they're all secretive about what their processes are, and there was like this refrigerator sitting outside, and I opened up the refrigerator and they had solid cherries like frozen in it. And I'm like, what is this process like? And they're like, oh, we can't tell you. But at this point in time, it's like static cherry. This is what they were working with. They were way ahead of the game at this point in time. So
is that a particular static cherry? Is that a specific process, or is that what you're talking about with it being frozen?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, they freeze cherries. They just chill cherries. I mean, there's all these crazy stuff. I don't know. It's gone so like it was there. But for 3 years ago, it was kind of hidden. Yeah. And now it just exploded, and now you're getting samples of left and right of just all these things named differently, but also kind of same processes.
No, it makes sense. And for people that are watching, like you said, like 3-4 years ago, everything was like you had a very simple. We've talked about washed coffees, natural. We've talked about, you don't see them too often, but different honey processed, right? I haven't found a lot of honey processed coffees like in the last 2 years. Obviously, it's only what my eyes can see, but for a while there, those were like popping up. Oh, this is this sort of process, and there's just a lot of different stuff that's coming up. Falling back to you selecting in particular coffees, are you more prone to specific regions, and why, or is it kind of just what is produced out there quality that you want to get your hands on?
I don't know. I really want relationships with the farms, and so it's hard for me to, like, if I don't have those relationships really to pull those coffees in. And it all depends on, like, if you get into sourcing trips, you're committing to those farms. But if you can't get to those farms, then you have to commit to outside elements, meaning like companies bringing in the coffees.
Right.
Because if you don't have relationships with the farms, Ethiopia is another hard one, because they're going to their mills. Like, farms are feeding into, for example, like you can go to Laya Tarago, and they have 2 wet mills, but 400 farms feed into it. Like, you're getting good coffee, but traceable coffee is really hard to find.
Yeah, that's true.
To meet the farmer is hard to find. You can meet the people at the mill, and sometimes the farmers are there dumping off and you can meet them, but it's really hard to have like traceable coffee. So if you see a traceable Ethiopian, kudos to those people, because like that's really building a relationship. So
right. What percentage do you find that there are that situation where it's not directly traceable? So like, say percentage of farms, they drop off their coffee to a mill, or they do both. They produce it and they process the coffee.
Well, it all depends on the wealth of the country. It's
of course.
I mean, Costa Rica is going to have a lot more personal wet mills and dry mills than Ethiopia. They just can't afford it.
Right.
So you're going to find a lot more traceable coffees in Costa Rica compared to Ethiopia, only because of the resources available.
Okay. And then like in Ethiopia, based on your experience, is there a lot of farms that feed into one specific mill or processing? Yeah. Is that typically how it goes with like larger farms or smaller farms that have quality coffee?
Yeah, I mean, in an example, like in Yirgacheffe, you're going to have some farms that have the means to have their own wet mill,
right?
But it's very limited. I mean, I know there's two wet mills in Yirgacheffe that feed a lot of farms. So
that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's probably progressed. Do you feel like it's changed over the years, or it's always just been that way because that's just the state of the country?
Yeah, I think it's the state of the country. I really believe that Ethiopia should be the most expensive coffees out there.
That's true.
And I still see them coming through, even sometimes $3-4 a pound. And I'm like, this is absurd because, you know, if you flew into Addis Ababa, you go to, it's a 5-hour drive to your hotel, first of all. Even that gets you halfway to Yirgacheffe. So it's another 5-hour drive the next day to Yirgacheffe, or even just the region itself. So to understand the trucks that are shipping back to Addis to dump their coffees off in the mill, and that's where mainly you cup all the coffees that kind of come in before they're shipped out. You can cup at the farms, that's great, but to have a range of stuff, you go to the holding facility in Addis. So it's just amazing, like what means they have to even get it from the farm to Addis. It's very primitive. So, and then to ship it across the country is, it should be, I think it should be way more, but.
Right. And I know a few roasters that, again, like you say, follow the traceability, right? That's a big part of, I'm going to write that down because that's so a part of the selection process is your relationship as well as traceability, right?
Yeah.
I know a couple of roasters that are very outspoken with, you know, this whole traceability, right? And that's a big difference between specialty coffee and Starbucks or mainstream coffee is the traceability, right? On your bag of coffee, you have the specific farm that it's from, the information, as much information as you obviously want to put on there.
I can do more.
Of course. People put tons of information on it, and it's good. It's good either way, as long as it gives the origin of like, oh, this is where it's from, and that's the traceability that's the big difference, right? So again, with the selection process, your relationship, traceability, what other factors are there for you in selecting coffees?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, if it comes all the way down to the taste, before then it's I mean, you got varietals, you got the processes itself. I'm thankful for having Blair Smith now, and I've kind of moved her into the head roasting position, and I roast with her. We both have the elements now of like buying coffee, and she brings in an element that I probably wouldn't bring in. Well, not that I wouldn't, it's time consuming, right? Yeah. It's knowing what you like personally, but in the past, it's always just kind of been what I love.
Right.
And now having this other entity, and it's great. It allows me to explore what I really love, but also listen to Blair and what she has to present. So.
Right. With different varietals, are there particular ones that you find more common that you are selecting, or just kind of depends on
that depends available? On what farm's growing and what
right.
they cater in. I mean, there's could be farms just catering in geisha. I mean,
right.
You can like 90 plus. I mean, you walk amongst the geisha blooms throughout, you know, hectares and hectares of land. So, really, what has really grown in that region. So
Do you find that you try to make connections with smaller farmers that have high quality coffee? Do you find other roasters do that, or they kind of look at what is scoring a lot higher and what's not popular by demand, but just more common? Or
yeah, I mean, it's you try to make that connection in every trip, right? It's like you still work with the farms that you know of, but also it's all about connecting with a smaller farm that is kind of willing to, like, I want to do this, like,
right.
we're ready. You know, my grandpa and great grandpa and his father before him has done it this way, and it's not working out, and commodity coffee is not working for us, and we want to step into the specialty world. How do we do this?
So that right there is a really good, that's the word that I could have been using for episode, is commodity coffee, which is coffee on the masses, right? Like large scale, I guess they would be large scale producers, right? Or they're part of this whole group of buyers that are just looking for quantity, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. That's a good one. Cause I don't know why that word never came to my mind, but that's like the perfect way to describe between like specialty coffee and commodity coffee. Cause the only other word is non-special coffee that we could use.
Right. Yeah, you can consider it between specialty and commodity. And then if they're Robusta or Arabica, I mean, those are the big branches right there. But, if farms are trading on the commodity, it's what the market drives the coffee, but it doesn't really help out the farmers or the workers either way.
Right, because there's a huge price difference between commodity and specialty, right? You said at that farm, the father of the grandfather, that's what they always did, and it just not necessarily turned a profit, but it wasn't helping the farm, right? It wasn't helping it grow or giving back to the farm.
Right. So, I mean, it's all about, giving, like,
sustainability.
Right. You took the words out of my mouth. It's really, for me, it's educating our city on what good coffee is and understanding where that money is going. I know our coffees are high dollar, but it's also, these people deserve it. I mean, it's they finally are seeing a break. It's the hard thing is like, if you go back to Carlos Montero, and his son Jacob is the last one left on the farm. His two daughters, well, Nella's still in coffee. They started Selva Coffee, which
right.
They do. They export Costa Rican coffees, and they also like search for the best Costa Rican coffee.
Right.
And exports it. But his other daughters just got out of flying school, and she's flying right now. She's flying commercial. So it's Jacob is kind of torn in the ways of he kind of wants to move to the big city and, make a different income and make a professional life, getting out of the farm. But also, like, you've got to just keep treating it like you in this world is put on a pedestal. Like,
yeah.
We just had, did I send you that geisha that we had from him? He's the one. It was I don't know if you got it. It would have been like last month.
It's possible. I probably honestly have it in my freezer. The last little bit of it.
Yeah. Well, he got second Cup of Excellence in Costa Rica with that. And it's like, if we lose Jacob to this farm, then Carlos is kind of like left searching for more people, someone to treat it the way
right
we want to treat it. So it's like, if we can give Jacob and Carlos that incentive to keep him there, staying there, and keeping these farms running properly, that's great. And you can even look at all the way down into your staff. You want to keep your staff around, so you want to pay them properly,
right?
Keep them around, because you don't want to churn them over. You don't want to see them as a commodity,
right? And I think that's a big, it's kind of funny that when I am describing coffee or especially coffee, like, oh, go to the shop or do this, or for example, there's a local shop here that he does a siphon brew, which really isn't common, like done well, like done very well, and he's spent a lot of time perfecting it or whatever. And people who are local to Salt Lake and that, I'll say at least go to this location. Like it's he works with small farmers. He brings in small micro lots, like just small, because he's a one-man shop sort of thing. And I'll let him know, I'm like, okay, like go to the shop, like if you've never had really good like brewed coffee, he'll do a siphon brew for you. It'll be like a $12 cup, which is like, sometimes people are like, what, $12? Like it's a whole experience for one, because he sits you down, he talks about the origin of specialty coffee and all of that, and he's passionate about it, and he'll brew it in front of you, he'll give it to you in a cup, and he'll explain to you, okay, if you sip it right now, it's going to be scalding hot and you can't just taste hot, like that's not a thing. So you let it cool down, and then he lets you enjoy the coffee, and he says, okay, as the coffee cools down, and it's this whole experience, right? And in my mind, it's a good experience for someone who's never had like a V60 or a delicious fruity coffee or anything of that sorts, to kind of connect the dots of it. Now is the $12, $13 cup coffee, I don't, in particular with the cost of coffee that he has, it could be that is pretty high, like for like a 1 cup kind of experience. But you have like it's not a bad thing. I'm not painting it as a bad thing, because the relation is that you have people who will spend $5-6 on a Starbucks, but then they won't go on the other hand and do something that's local, or like, so that's like, again, like you're offering this price to your city, and the value of it speaks along with the price. Well, this is why we're doing, because this coffee that we're sourcing, we're paying his family, we're paying for this farm to stay around, right? And it's this cycle, and to a lot of people it's like, well, this is just too much, and it doesn't make sense, because your budget for the month of Starbucks is far more than this cup of coffee, right?
Right.
And it comes down to convenience too. Like, oh, I can just go through drive-through and just get it real fast, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you need to enjoy coffee. Like, come on.
It really, like, I feel like it's like those higher lying coffees that I'm bringing in right now, I feel like it's finally working for me. Like, meaning like people, and I see it back to like education. It's been 10 years I've trying to educate our city on like what we're doing with coffee and what good coffee is. And this past year we've thrown on some phenomenal coffees, and thanks to having Blair on, allows me to do this a little bit more. And people are showing up, and people are exploring, and they're buying these things, and they're loving them. And I can tell you 8 years ago, like I went to Finca Santa Teresa in Panama, and I got all excited about a geisha. I got a natural geisha, and I bought like a 50-pound box, and it showed up, and I put some on the shelves, and no one bought it. And this is like 8 years ago or 9 years ago, maybe less than that.
Probably be different now.
Yeah, and it sat, and then it didn't sell. So I was so humiliated. I was just, I don't know how I felt. It was just like, I was like, this is not right. Like I shouldn't be doing this, but also like, I feel like people should really understand like what I'm doing, but no one does. And
of course,
I didn't put it on the shelves. So I ended up just sharing it with our staff the whole time. We just brewed it. I think we did a pot of coffee with it once and didn't like highlight it, but also like Finca Santa Teresa. I mean,
well, and that's funny, because that's the longevity of the journey of like specialty coffees. That what happened, like you doing that whatever years ago would respond a lot different now, right? I could tell you, for me personally, I would have been like, oh, like $35 for like 6 ounces of coffee, or whatever the amounts are. Like a while ago I've been like, ooh, but now I'm like, I'm gonna have this coffee because this coffee may not be around anymore, or like it's a limited coffee, and people see the value of it. Real quick, Wife's in here. Love that he's explaining why specialty coffee costs what it costs. I think a lot of people don't think about everything that goes behind the coffee farms, etc. That is very true. Question: seems like more coffee shops are trying new ways to process the bean. Do you see new processes besides wash and natural? That is actually my brother, Rico. What's up? That's so cool. I've told him to watch and stuff, and he's in chat. So we had talked about that briefly in the beginning. We're seeing right now, and I think you've grabbed some coffee from Sweet Bloom before that has done different processes, right? So we talked about it. You have a couple here, anaerobic, lacted, static, right? They froze the cherries. There's all these different trending, and they are trends. They're all trends of different processed coffees that you're seeing a lot more right now. I say with the last year and a half or 2 years, they've progressed to be a lot further. Like maybe I remember like 5 or 6, 7 years ago, the biggest thing was green coffee that is put into whiskey barrels. So like barrel aged coffees, right? Like that was a big thing. I remember when I went to SCA, that was the thing. Like, oh, they put this in a whiskey. Oh my God, this tastes like whiskey. Or right, bourbon barrel aged green coffee, right? So it is this trending thing, and it's kind of just kept going with people adding different things because I think they saw, oh, people are responding to these particular methods, or the coffees are good. When we were cupping this Panama Geisha, aside from it being a geisha, and maybe the static part is part of it, like I said, I text you, but I'm like, this Panama next to the Colombia, like the mouth difference were just entirely different. Like they were like, I'm like, whoa, what's going on? I told my wife, I'm like, try that one and try that one. And it was similar a lot to the Guji, right? The natural that you gave me there. It was, the mouthfeel was just like, well, blammo. Some other comments here. Ship in, I don't like coffee. That's okay to not like coffee. The point is to educate, to spark the curiosity, right? If people are watching this and they're like, well, I really care for coffee, it can be intriguing for them because there's this delicious coffee that's out there.
If it's a caffeine thing, then, I mean, if he doesn't like coffee, then maybe he should try specialty coffee rather than like.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good indication. Like, Ship in, you live in New Zealand. Correct me if I'm wrong, in New Zealand. Okay. I don't know any specific specialty coffee shops there in New Zealand, but I believe that, and it's popular in that side of Europe, like Nordic coffee importers, or that specific, not producer, but they help facilitate coffees. Like it's a specific company that, have you heard of that before?
Yeah.
Is that part of New Zealand area? I know you can get their coffees wherever, but like they're prominent in Europe, like the more common.
I mean, there's tons of specialty roasters in New Zealand. I mean, I got a friend here in town that has a roaster. I'm trying to think of it at the top of my head, but him and his brothers own this roaster in town, or in New Zealand. So he's just the accountant for them.
Oh, that's cool. I'm curious what it is. I'll have to do some research too, Ship in, because it may be the difference of having a cup of coffee, gas station quality, to having a specialty coffee. That's the big difference, right? That's usually the first.
It's different in Italy if you do gas station quality coffee.
That's probably true.
I would love to create like a chain of like Italian style gas stations in the U.S. that do the same thing with coffee as they do over there, and paninos and paninis and sandwiches. Like it's
of course.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's not the 7-Eleven experience.
I mean, QT's kind of got it going with the. I don't know if you have QTs up there in Utah, but
we don't. No. Ship in, I'm not balling like that. It is an expense thing, okay? It is, but it's worth it. You got to think. That's like what we were talking about, the whole idea of you're holding value to what you're buying, right? You're not buying a cup of coffee. You're buying sustainability for a small farm, sustainability for that coffee shop that's there, because they have to pay their people a living wage, right? That's super important. So I hope we answered those questions. Blindsided, hope we answered those. Just looking real fast. So talking about the Arizona coffee scene, I have family in Arizona. I have not been there in a while. I'll probably go there to see a couple people that I've met through Instagram and stuff.
What were the two you knew? You said
so. Peixoto, I've had their coffee before. What was that?
Julia, yeah.
Yeah. Their coffee has been really, really good. I haven't had their coffee in a while, but the time that I had it, I had like a little sampler pack of everything. And it was like incredible. I was like, oh, this is so good. Like, I mean, you, them, and then,
come on, give it
who
to
else
me.
is, I'm having a brain fart.
You're probably thinking someone in the Lions of Phoenix, maybe? Cartel?
No, let me see.
Beth?
I'm gonna pull this up. Let me see.
I mean, I can start naming off my favorites.
Do it. Name it for the viewers. And I'll say, oh yeah.
Pear Cup works. Mythical.
Pear Cup, and then Mythical. I've heard of them. I've had Mythical's coffee, not Pear Cups. But I've seen their work and followed what they do. And again, it fits all in the realm of like, oh, if I have an opportunity to purchase them, like I'm gonna do it. Like it's hands down.
That's a clear example of like seeing like what's happening now at this point. Like us, like I started 10 years ago, and I have had staff that's come to me about this too, and like they want to start their own thing. Pear Cup and both Mythical were employees or team members of Peixoto that started their own thing.
Right. That's cool.
And so like, we've had some staff that was interested in doing it. And I think just, Tucson's a little behind. It makes more sense in Phoenix because the amount of people, and it's an instant success. Here we have a lot of roasters, but I don't think we have a lot of coffee drinkers or the density that we need in our city to make it work.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like the same thing here with Salt Lake. Salt Lake is behind on specialty coffee. The last couple years, they've made some good strides with a handful of coffee roasters that produce really high quality on par with with other roasters. But it's very specific. Like if I wanted to open up a specialty coffee shop in Ogden, it would be probably very challenging. There's like mom and pop shops up here that have been around for a while. They have the dark roasted, like just like semi-quality coffee that I wouldn't call specialty coffee. But they have the longevity of people going there because this is a local thing. And so it's very specific. Like it's really just in Utah down south. Silvana's in chat. She roasts for Public Coffee down in Salt Lake, which we will have on the show on May, which is cool to see you in chat. But it's like Utah is it's behind. It's making making lots of progress. I can point to shops in the specific area that I'm like, oh yeah, go check out these people, and that sort of thing. But it's only in specific areas. It's like the same thing. In Ogden, be risky. In Layton, there was recently a shop that closed down. They were a specialty coffee shop and they just closed down for whatever reason. Probably at the end of the day, it was a matter of income, right? Profitability in the area. It's just like a hit or miss. And that's because it's just a lot slower. We did have a question earlier. For someone who would love to serve their community in a way similar to yourself, what is a good way to step into learning the process of roasting coffee? I would say like tag on to people who, and this is interesting because you don't find a lot of like resources for someone that they want to start roasting coffee. It's just like, I think of, Ladder Coffee in Washington. Like he started his whole thing on a Baymore, right? Or a Beemore. Yeah. Like it's 1 pound at a time and roasted it. And I don't know the start of him. I'm sure there was guides and different things to kind of teach him along the way. I don't believe that he went to any sort of like training in specifically as far as it was just kind of a trial and error of doing it all. But what's a way that someone can start to maybe in their own community?
Yeah, I think you needed to really connect with your local roasters, local specialty roasters, and sometimes they offer classes. During COVID, we shut down a lot of that stuff just to avoid the crossover. But I always have samples I give out to the fans that are.
Yeah, that's true.
I've got. We actually we call it the dirty tea blend, and we kind of separate the varietals, but we'll have 50 pounds each country really, if you look at it. till we roast up like twice a year, and just in samples, just to make fun of it. We're like, we all have these samples. We're not going to let it go to waste, or I give them out to people, or we roast it. So I say find a local roaster that would hand out some of their old samples. But the best way really is if you don't want to buy any equipment, you bake it.
That's true. It's
in the
like
oven.
Finicky, and it's very not forgiving, I'm sure. But that's a way to do it too. Just
occasionally agitate it, but I mean, and you throw it down at 425 for probably 12 minutes.
Wow. We're getting secrets, folks. Write it down if you want to start. There's a way, grab your oven. And I think a lot of it too is, I thought about me and my wife's journey of doing this. Like, I eventually want to get in a spot where that we can start roasting our own branded coffee with, a coffee shop, right? But if you're in a position where you can't do that, obviously, like the investment portion, starting off small, the oven. I've seen people, like, again, Baymore's, they're like $500, 1 pound roaster that they comes with resources from that company that you could start doing it that way. As janky as it is, I've seen people do it on, for a while, the trend was on air popcorn machines. You had to jimmy rig it, and it doesn't quite get as hot, and you have to make it work. There's janky ways to do it. The oven definitely sounds like the more proper way of trial and error. But connecting with other roasters and tagging along with them, you have to build a relationship there. So maybe start off by visiting there, getting a cup of coffee, and connecting with the people on a continual basis. But I think our journey a lot of it will be serving all of these different roasters from around the United States and serving them with people. Because I mean, eventually, again, like, I'd love to roast our own coffee and all that, but there's a lot of good roasters like you, Peixoto, like you in Arizona, even across the United States, that roast coffee really well, that's worth sharing in your community. So you may start there, get some. You might start there, finding coffees locally that are along the specialty coffee path that you want to follow. Brew those coffees, get familiar with it, and share with people, and start that way. And then, as you're saying, you're giving out samples or whatever, like, start roasting and then giving your coffee to people to try. Like, that's the beginning process of defining and perfecting roasting, right? Like, it's different for everybody, but that's one way, to share your coffee and be like, hey, I roasted this. Let me know what you think. And they may not brew it a specialty way, but they might say, wow, this is better than my K-Cup. And there you go. That's how it starts. Like, there's such an easy way to blow someone's mind, in a sense, between them having a K-Cup and you giving them like a delicious coffee that's been roasted that's delicious, right? Like, instantly they're like, well, now I've ruined a lot of people, and they can't go back to their K-Cups because they've had really good coffee. Like, the K-Cup's ruined now and they can't have it, which is the goal.
So true. I mean, if you step it up from there, you get a popcorn popper. You go to Goodwill and find a popcorn popper. And that's easy. That's the next step up. And if you want to go into kind of a small home roaster, and then you're up in a couple $100 at that point. So
yeah, that's a good way to get started and get familiar. And I think he said he was from Massachusetts. And like you said, it's all like city specific, right? It's different. The progression of what you'll find as far as specialty coffee is very specific. It'll either be there or it'll be a place that's been there for so long, and it's kind of just like, this is sad coffee, it's just burnt or whatever, and you could easily stand out in your area if you're bringing in coffee and sharing it with people, and
yeah, I mean, there isn't a lot of books out there either to tell you how to roast coffee, because I mean,
what's I'm saying, there's not a lot, and there is someone in chat here, I won't call him out, and I'm trying to get that person to make roasting videos, or just in general, like, helpful tips, or because I think there is, I think that's how you connect the dot for some people, but people who that are passionate about specialty coffee, like myself, that could say, oh, this person does this and they said this is what you want to look for, or it's all based on experience, obviously. Right. And that's the important part of it, that if you're experienced and you have like the credibility to create those videos and stuff, But I think it's informational for other roasters that may be up and coming. They may say, oh, I've only been roasting for a year or two. I don't know anything, or I don't know about this machine. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I roast like semi-decent coffee. How do you take the mom and pop shop who's curious about roasting? They've had a taste of this coffee. How do you get them to the next level? And that's a part of the process too. But like you said, you don't find a lot of, roasting coffee for dummies. I don't even think there's a book. There probably is.
There's a general schematic of it, but it's really like it's a personal flavor. Like my profiles were too edgy 8 years ago. It was just too light for people, and I still think it's too light for people today. But it's
perfect.
I don't know. I mean, if you're talking to a person that drinks like grocery store coffee that they're buying from a grocery store, yes, it's entirely too light.
Yeah.
Then again,
but I think deep down they like it. I think they like it secretly. You know why? Because I've given coffee to my dad, and he's been nothing but 100% Colombian tin can coffee drinker and K-cup drinker. And every time I visit Colorado, he says, "Oh, are you gonna make some coffee?" And his supposed, "Oh, what is this? I can't taste anything," secretly likes it. I think deep down he can taste the fruitiness and enjoys the coffee.
Right. All the way just to walking into a coffee shop and knowing, looking at the hopper of the coffee shop and knowing what you're getting.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's that's aged on the plastic. You could see like the previous coffee color, like the dark roast of it, the oils.
Yeah. So, and don't get me wrong, I totally accept that style of coffee too. I mean, I can do the greasy diner coffee, no problem. I understand it's part
of course.
of the atmosphere. I love it. But this is the way I want to see coffee moving towards, and this is the way I like it. And I don't have any investors or anyone like pushing me the way it should be, or the way we should be doing, or roasting in bulk, or going these ways. And like, I'm still small. I've been operating for 10 years. I could have taken the opportunity to go big and stuff, but I've stayed the way I want to stay and true to myself. So,
and that's important. I mean, people who have investors and stuff, it's just a part of their journey, and they have to navigate what's best for the company and voice their concerns and all that, and do what they can. And if they can bring in, like you said, more edgier coffees, or it's honestly a toss-up, hit or miss. I don't think anybody will specifically. I mean, no shop is running one bean machine, right? They have different options. If you have this edgy coffee that's being brewed, chances are the next day they'll either, if they really did hate it, I'm sure they would get a different coffee, or ask, is that still on? I mean, what person's asking, oh, this coffee that you had, is it still, you guys still brewing it? Like, because I don't want this one, right? Like, have you come across someone who's rejected? They'll keep it to themselves and they'll say, oh, I didn't like that. Or, like if they're really specific or used to a specific blend or whatever for that. But as we are wrapping up, this has been really great, Curtis, just to connect with you again. I appreciate the craft that you do in Arizona, and
thank you.
When me and the family decide to go out, we're going to do a little coffee run, because I do have family in Tucson specifically. We'll have to stop by and enjoy, because our whole family, we love coffee and going to coffee shops and getting a little treat and getting coffee, and we'll probably get some bags and all that. Any last words you'd like to share to the people that are watching of Presta? Maybe highlight your team, the locations. If you're ever in the area, this is where you can find it. I do have your link in chat here. If they are wanting to purchase something, it's there just so they could see it. But your last words, sir.
I don't know. I guess I can put the shout out to the team, all the team members. I mean, and I think we're the happiest shops in Tucson. I think we have the most polite and the chillest, but yet friendliest baristas out there. And
good, because that's a big part of specialty coffee. And
yeah,
don't get me started on customer service.
Right. They do a great job of educating the client that comes in and doesn't know what they want. And I think that is a big part of our team. So,
and that's awesome, because you won't find that everywhere. And that's something that I always try to like encourage people. I'm like, find whatever state they live in. I look to see what's in the area. If it's a shop that I have followed or I know the quality of coffee that they have, I'll tell them that exact thing. Like, hey, go up to the counter and say, hey, I was recommended this coffee shop. Can you brew me something that's like this? Or, I'm curious about this. And I always hope that the shop uses that as opportunity to educate, right? That's how you retain and have sustainability, is being nice and being educated towards your client that comes in, right? I hope someone doesn't like turn them away. Don't ask for that specifically. Get out of here. Like, but there are shops that are not very friendly.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole goal, is create a community and educate them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So.
Perfect. Well, again, guys, wrapping up the show, this has been the Coffee Lab episode 5, the selection. We talked briefly with Curtis about his selection process with different coffees and farmers that he's worked with. He's just making faces. Now I don't have to freeze frame you so that it's not on there distracting me. No, that's perfect. And it's been great to share your coffee. I have a couple of people in chat that I've shared the coffee that I actually purchased through me to recommend it to you. I always shout you guys out. I'm like, Presta, these people, boom, boom, boom. But yes, thank you for joining us. If you want to watch our other episodes, I will put that in chat real fast. Let me see if that's the command.
I stop through skiing again, I'll stop in and say hi.
There you go. No, seriously, if you're ever in Utah, I will seriously drive and meet you and connect with you again. And
my best friend lives like right across from the school.
Nice. Well, you better visit him so we can connect. But again, I know. Again, guys, Presta Coffee Roasters, they're out in Arizona. Curtis here, the owner of it, the man in charge. And Curtis, I really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much again for the coffees. Just outstanding. The Costa Rica is actually one. My fellow streamer here, Ashmeg, that's the coffee that she actually purchased. That was cool. Like the beginning of the year. I think she purchased it.
Yeah.
But that's great. That's fantastic. Again, guys, thank you for joining us. This episode will be on YouTube right after this. We'll cut it up and ship it, and it'll be here to watch if you missed parts of it or to watch it again. Again, thank you, Curtis, for everything.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Enjoy your coffee.
I know. Keep waving. Oh, see you guys.